Emmanuel Eze, and I'm your scholarship gen guide, scholarship info guide for this evening. And we are happy to be here on this platform, myself and my guest this evening, to answer questions about scholarships and study abroad opportunities. And I hope this is okay. Um, so I see that people are joining in already, and there's an echo somewhere. I, yes, I see. It's handled. Thank you. Thank you. Sorry about that little glitch, and I welcome you. I will be happy to see where you are joining from um, while you're here. You can do well to just type it in the chat and tell us where you're joining from, and I'll be happy to welcome you right here. Um, but in the meantime, I'm going to introduce my guest for this evening so that we proceed with time, and I'll try to meet up with all the questions. I already have a list of questions from pre-registered participants, and my own question, which I think would be in the heart of, in the mind of many listeners and many viewers who would be on this live broadcast and who are likely to see the video of this live broadcast afterwards. And we're talking about our guest this evening, who is a PhD student and a four-time scholarship winner. This is quite amazing because it's something that intrigues me as a person, how he's been able to achieve this feat, and I hope you'll be telling us that in a few minutes. His name is Chukwuemeka Augustine Okechukwu, and he's a doctoral researcher at the Robert Gordon University in Aberdeen in the United Kingdom. And of course, he's right here this evening with us to take our questions and to, bring some insights into the issues that will be raised from our viewers this evening.
Hello, good evening, everyone, and special thanks to uh, Emmanuel for bringing me on the program. Once again, I want to even say congratulations to you on the progress you've made so far with your efforts on YouTube and all the constant posts that you continue to push out on Facebook and LinkedIn and across social media platforms. So just to confirm, I hope everyone is hearing me clearly because sometimes my voice gets too low. I'll try as much as possible, very audible. Yeah. Then I think we all know that. We can keep engaged on the chats. I think please just drop a message on the chat so that we can fix as quickly as possible. Yeah. So today we are talking about scholarships, and it's in our interest to ask questions. When you ask questions, you don't miss the road. When you ask questions about something, you get properly guided. And I think the best places to seek guidance are from people who have gone past the road you are heading towards, so who have walked on the path that you are intending to walk on. So I often tell people that, in my opinion, I think scholarships are things I understand to some extent, and I'll give a little bit of background. At the point when I was finishing my bachelor's degree, which was funded, I began to take interest in moving to another country. Then I was studying in Russia, and then I wanted to move to the US. Now, the number one reason why you even need to start thinking about scholarships is because education is actually expensive. I don't know how many of us realize this. If, for instance, you are somewhere in Africa, maybe in Nigeria, you see school fees of maybe like maybe 80,000 naira, which is somewhere just a little above $100. But when you intend to move outside of the scope of Africa to other countries like the US, Canada, the UK, you begin to see a very significant jump in the amount of money you are supposed to be paying in fees. And so you realize that you need something else to push through this. Now, of course, there are people who are very rich, but even if you are very rich, why then, if somebody else or some organization is willing to fund it? So that has been my approach to education. So I began searching for alternative options to getting into the US, to the UK, and began to seek information on what is required, what is the process, and then what kind of scholarship opportunities are available. So if you are at that point where you are wondering why do you need a scholarship, because let's not even overstress it. Education is expensive, and you need action to actually fund you through high quality education, because you don't have to be in a position where you spend all your life savings on school, and then in the end somebody else was actually willing to pay everything that you spent your money doing. So that was where my knowledge of school began to expand, and then I began to see all the options that are available. Sometimes in
you need to get the real starting point.
Yes.
Because if your bachelor's abroad, then it means there is started, not just a cost now, not just you come about and then you take how you are for when someone looking for one.
All right. So the journey actually for me started right from secondary school. So it's a bit of I could just walk us through down memory lane a little. So at the point of secondary school, I knew that I wanted to study outside of the country. So it was like a passion. And then came the process of trying to find out information about opportunities that are. Now, one of the opportunities that came in handy was a scholarship which was not very popular at the time. This was around 2009, 2010, 2008, 2010. Now, at that point, the internet was not even as common as it is now in Nigeria, and social media use was also not as common as it is. So there was this scholarship by the Federal Scholarship Board of Nigeria. It's called Bilateral Educational Agreement. Now, the bilateral agreement, what it actually does is an existing partnership between Nigeria and some other countries. So, you could go to Russia, you could go to Turkey, you could go to, I think, Hungary, you could go to Japan, you could go to a number of countries like that. Once the information was in, then application was done. At that point, it wasn't even all the online application that happens these days. It was more like you have to print a form, fill it out, then go and submit it at the exam venue and all of that. And then we went through the exam process, and then lo and behold, the scholarship came through. Well, of course, one of the downsides to it was, sometimes you could apply for one course and they give you another course, which was eventually how I ended up in oil and gas engineering, from a background I wanted wanted to go into electronic engineering and all that. Now, prior to that time, the very firm I actually had a scholarship was in secondary school, but that was more like a recognition of excellence because I had gone to represent the school in a chemistry competition. And then coming back, I think I was first in the state then, and then second at the national level. So coming back to the school, what do we do for this young man who has taken our name to the national level and all that and all that. So it was like a fee waiver for me at the point. But realizing that how much impact having those fees waived could have on the amount of time you spend concentrating on studies instead of worrying about how to raise money for your fees makes a whole lot of difference. And then going from that period all up until now, I have not had the case to worry about fees. I give a typical example. In the UK, for instance, in my own school, when I got admission into this particular program, the fee was going to be around 16,000 plus pounds. I don't know which country you are joining from, but if you are coming from Nigeria, that's close to 14 to 15 million naira. So now imagine someone taking off that burden from you. Even if I had 15 million, why go to a school if there are organizations that are willing to pay it on my behalf? Yeah, so that's for me a main motivation. I don't believe in having to spend on something that I can get for free, especially if I'm getting good quality. What scholarships has come to do for me. Yeah.
Very much for your interesting insights into the importance of pursuing
So
scholarships. Yes.
Yeah.
And so how this process?
Okay, sorry, I couldn't get you very clearly.
Okay, I'm saying how do we go?
Okay, so the processes of getting scholarships, this is something I talk about a lot on different platforms and whenever I meet people and have the opportunity to discuss it. Now, there is something about scholarships and you need to understand the particular class of scholarship you are applying for or you are interested in. Because the approach to finding information about these scholarships, the approach to applying for these different categories of scholarships vary. I usually tell people that scholarships can either be funded by, say, an organization. Some scholarships are funded by the government of countries and states. And then there are these other class of scholarship that people don't really focus so much on, even though I consider it as having the greater opportunity, which is the graduate assistantship options, right? So if you are looking for a government-funded scholarship, I'll be giving examples mostly from Nigeria because that's where I come from and I understand them very much better. So if you're looking for a government-funded scholarship in Nigeria, for instance, then you need to keep your eyes open to the website of the Federal Scholarship Board of Nigeria. Of course, there are state governments that have their own scholarships also, but you need to focus on the Federal Scholarship Board's website. So because all the scholarships you find in Nigeria, such as Commonwealth Scholarship, the Bilateral Agreement Scholarship, most of these things are managed through the Federal Scholarship Board. And if you are not in touch with the Federal Scholarship Board, you miss out on all of them. So your first starting point is finding the scholarship. In fact, sometimes I would even stretch backwards to say that the starting point is actually desiring the scholarship. But since we are all here, I believe everyone who is here is desirous of a scholarship, right? So your first point will be to find it. So if you are looking for a government sponsored scholarship in your own country, what you just need to do is check out the website of your country or the scholarship award body under the government of your country. And once you're able to find that, it becomes easy and simple. Now, there are some other scholarships, for instance, that organizations such as There are somewhat like the PTDF in Nigeria would fund. Now, these scholarships are usually on an annual basis, so they are repetitive. Sometimes they come within a particular month. They advert come within a particular month. PTDF has just recently announced, has just opened their portal for applications about 2 days ago, if I'm not mistaken. So someone who is looking for that kind of scholarship should actually keep an eye on that, right? Then, if you are looking for the other class of scholarship, which I think every one of us should be looking at, the graduate assistantship. A graduate assistant is someone in a school who is helping a professor and having his tuition waived, and in many cases getting a pay for what he is doing, right? So why I think you should be looking at this very closely is because unlike all the other organizational funded scholarships, you find that in search for graduate assistantship, you are unlimited, right? You are only limited by your course. But organizations would fund scholarships based on fair of interest. PTDF, for example, is not going to fund any research or any student who is coming from an arts background. Well, they might, for instance, to do something logistics and procurement for oil and gas industry. But the point is, whatever you are doing under PTDF will have to stay closely related to the oil and gas and the energy industry as a whole. But imagine that you are a student of history and you can't just find any interest in anything that is oil and gas, right? How do you get a scholarship? Then you need to pay attention more closely to the graduate assistantship options. Now, where do you find all these opportunities? There are lots of websites that publish scholarships on a daily basis or as often as they find them. Now, of recent, LinkedIn has become another popular destination for those who are looking for scholarships, right? So on LinkedIn, there are lots of scholarships being published there. And if you're able to build a good network on LinkedIn, then you stand a very good chance of seeing lots of scholarship options. Now, the list is almost to even exhaust in one session, but I'm also going to let us know that there are lots of Facebook groups, there are lots of Telegram groups that you can join in your search for scholarship. The problem with many people is that somebody wants to look for scholarships, but the person wants to do it in isolation. You know, the mindset of don't tell your friends, don't let anybody know the card you are playing until it matures. The reality is, in your work, getting a scholarship, you need collaboration. You can't see every information all by yourself, no matter how hard you try. So you need to get into all these groups.
Hello. Hello, Chukwemeka. Looks like we are losing your voice. I think you have some network connection. Yes. In the conversation at this moment, it is a question and answer section on scholarship and study abroad opportunity. And these opportunities are numerous and multiple. And I'm your host this evening. Emmanuel Eze is my name, and I'm a 3-time scholarship winner. And on the program this evening, I have a 4-time scholarship winner, Chukwemeka, who has been talking with us. And to summarize the things he has been saying before, he has some network glitches. He has been talking about where to focus on in our search for scholarship opportunities. He has talked about local opportunities. He has talked about national opportunities in our various countries. And using Nigeria as a case study, he has talked about the Federal Scholarship Board, where he also got a scholarship for his bachelor's abroad. And he has talked about university positions as graduate assistant and research assistant, as well as social media. Something is going on.
Yeah. So I was just saying something about the social media before the network glitch happened. Yeah, so I was saying that LinkedIn, for instance, has become a very good platform for scholarship. Um, so if anyone is here and you don't have a LinkedIn account or you are not active on LinkedIn, I would recommend you do so. The reason is because all the professors who are going to be managing the graduate assistantship positions you are looking for, I can tell you that at least 90 to 95% of them are using LinkedIn. And when you're on LinkedIn, you're able to gain direct access to them. So you are not just doing emails. On LinkedIn, you are in front of them. You have the opportunity to warm up your relationship with them through the kind of posts you make, engagement with their posts, and you're able to put yourself out there as someone who is actually looking for scholarship, and you are in front of these people all the time. And somehow, somewhere, emotions, they say, is stronger than knowledge. So if you're able to appeal to them using the knowledge you have, able to touch emotions, then you are almost a step ahead of all your colleagues in terms of getting closer to a scholarship. So use the social media platforms, use all the scholarship websites you can find. If you have the specific scholarship award bodies, focus on their website. And most importantly, don't walk the journey in isolation. Don't attempt to hide yourself and shock your friends or surprise your friends. And whom you are hiding from might be the one with the information that leads to your getting a scholarship. My scholarship to Russia was, in fact, it was a friend who mentioned it to me initially, and it was another friend who downloaded the form and brought to my house to fill. So if you want to walk the walk in isolation, you will find it sometimes very challenging. And if you combine all these resources, I think at this point, I don't think there is a day I wake up and I don't see at least a scholarship opportunity being advertised by someone. And you need to be able to see the opportunity in order to be able to the scholarship opportunities. That's just a summary of
Thank you
how
very
it
much. Thank you very
goes.
much for those initial helpful tips on searching for a scholarship and going about the process. I get you well when you said don't walk alone on the scholarship search journey. That is quite exciting and interesting to hear because we're used to doing a lot of things in the hidden corner, and hearing this is a different perspective to what we knew before. And to continue very quickly, I want to ask. What should we look out for in the entire process before commencing the search for scholarship? What should we look out for? Are there things we should pay attention to during the application? Is there something that we must, focus on to ensure that our application is strong? And what do we do afterwards? So it's like three in one question, a triple-barrel question to you. What do we do before application for the scholarships? During the application and afterwards. Can you please jump on this? Thank you.
I think this one question actually that should be in the minds of everyone here. The starting point is you need to understand the scholarship you are in. And I'll try to be as practical as possible. In the process of completing your application, but one mistake you should avoid is trying to do a last minute submission. If it becomes unavoidable, then you can do it. But as much as possible, try to avoid last minute activities. The reason is this: many websites get clogged up on that last minute application time because there are several people who are trying to jump in on the websites, overload the website, and all of that. So you need to get your documents prepared ahead of time. Now, the point of application, you need to understand that every scholarship has a focus, right? So if PTDF is offering a scholarship, and I think I should even be using this example because it's something that is ongoing at the moment. So if PTDF has got a scholarship open like it has now, you need to understand one, that whatever on DDF funding should be to the oil and gas industry primarily, and then to the wider energy industry. So, and when you are making your proposal, you should throw in your proposal in that regard, because otherwise, if you bring in something that is of irrelevant to the funding body, they are not going to give you any funding. Now, you need to express this thing. You need to express this in your statement of purpose or in your research proposal if you are doing a PhD. So if you are not,
it's like we lost Chukwemeka again, and the conversation here is on scholarship, study abroad opportunities. We're taking question and answers, and audience, to you, you're welcome right here, and we can see you acknowledging, showing forth your presence. We acknowledge your presence, and if you have not yet indicated, you can just tell us where you're chatting from, where you're listening from, where you're viewing from, and right here on the conversation, the question we're taking before the network glitch is on what we should look out for in the entire process of applying for scholarship. Before the search, what are the things we should take note of during the application? What are the things we should ensure that we capture? And afterwards, what are the things we should do? And this is where we are, and we have talked about why students, why people should aspire for scholarship. And the high point of that question, in case you're just joining, is why pay more, or why pay much for education when it can be covered, when there are willing companies, willing establishments, and willing universities that are able to bear that cost, that burden of education. And so this is one of the great motivation, the great cost of education, as well as the possibility of enjoying a funded education is why you should aspire to get a scholarship, and you should not give up on your dreams of securing a scholarship. And we're taking progressive steps in our question and answer session this evening. And at this point, we are currently trying to unravel what we should look out for in the entire process, before, during, and afterwards. Thank you very much, Faustina, viewing from Nigeria. You're welcome. We're happy to have you here. And I give the mic right away back to Mr. Okechukwu to continue the conversation on what we should look out for in the entire process before, during, and after scholarship applications. Mr. Okechukwu, the floor is yours, please.
so now, if saying you need to be able to communicate in your research proposal or in SOP, depending on your level, master's or PhD, you need to be able to communicate terms that what you are proposing to study aligns with the big goal of the funding body. So if you are not able to communicate this, then you stand a very big chance of not even crossing that scholarship journey. Now, the other thing is, each of these scholarships will have their own additional requests, which is why you need to not walk the walk. You need to be able to ask questions. You need to get in touch with platforms that discuss scholarship opportunities. If, for instance, applying for, let's say, Chevening scholarship, you need to know that it's going to require that you write 4 essays. You need to also know that Chevening is going to require a minimum 2 years work experience from you. Now, when you have all of this information, what do? You start preparing your application ahead of time. You look at yourself, you do a self-assessment. Do I qualify? If I don't qualify, don't I qualify? What can I do to better my chances? Do I need to, volunteer somewhere in order to be able to make up for my work experience? do I need to maybe like take a particular leadership to be able to qualify for to better my chances in the application? Be able to now figure out all these things ahead of launching out application into applying. One thing is you need to also consider that some scholarships are fully funded, some other scholarships are partly funded. So a fully funded scholarship is going to pay your tuition and then pay you a certain amount of money for your upkeep. A partial funded scholarship might just pay your tuition alone. Then you need to take care of your expense, all of that. Now you need to bring all of this into the equation you are looking for, and then know what you are launching out for. The other consider very carefully is your destination. So if, for instance, you are traveling, you want to study, and you have the mind of back in the country, then you need to be able to carefully select the country to which you are going. However, what I just said last is more like in my order of preference in terms of importance. The reason is that your journey can start, for instance, in, let's say, Sweden, but your final destination is the US or Canada. It's better that you are in Sweden, start and then planning a journey to Canada than that you stuck somewhere, without a scholarship and to go to the US. So the journey can be from one country to other. So while knowing your final game plan is important, I don't think you should be very rigid in terms of
A lot of network glitch there, and I really hope that this is resolved. And he was trying to talk about knowing the game plan. And as we wait for him to reconnect again to the live broadcast, we really apologize for these technical issues. I'm sure it is the reception where he is. And so, as you're planning to travel abroad, study abroad, go for a scholarship, you know that there is no perfect system anywhere. There is no perfect system anywhere. And I could also try to take some questions from the pre-registered participants before he comes back on air. And there is one I saw which is familiar to what I can easily take. How can I win DAAD scholarship? How do I go about it? I can quickly answer this before Chukwemeka comes back, and I would say that yes, you can win a DAAD scholarship by applying. And you need to, first of all, determine what scholarship. We didn't specify if this is going to be for a bachelor's, a master's, or a PhD. The DAAD scholarship is limited to, only master's and doctoral study level. So it would have been easy to know exactly if master's or doctoral position is implied here. If it is master's level, then the DAAD scholarship would fund specific development courses, and because education is free in Germany, I have to start from that, and there is only payment of a little amount of money for administrative charges per semester. So education is generally free at all levels in Germany. But in one particular state, Baden-Württemberg, they introduced tuition fee in some few years back. But generally, university education is free in Germany, and the DAAD offers master scholarship to development-related programs and offers doctoral research scholarships to multiple courses. And this master's and PhD application processes are different and have different requirements. And one of the major differences is that for a master's, you need a letter of motivation, but for a PhD, you need a research proposal. And so, going about a DAAD scholarship is like going about any other kind of scholarship. You find out the course you want to apply. Is it really funded by the DAAD. And when that point is ticked and that question is answered, you go ahead to find out which and what universities offer the courses that are funded by DAAD for masters and PhD. And then what are their requirements? What are the eligibility criteria? When is the submission dates, application dates, and deadlines? And then when you find out all those information, you prepare them and you put in your application before the deadline. And that is how to go about the application. And the DAAD is, of course, a very competitive scholarship, but people win it. I won it for my PhD. And yes, you too can. So just meet all the requirements, find out, begin from the starting point, the course you want to do. Is it being offered in Germany? Which universities offer that course? And then what is their entry requirements? Do you meet it? And then you now come to the point of funding. Does the DAAD fund this program? So if you're able to answer these questions, then you are just right about the point of beginning a successful application. When you put together all the application requirements, you'll be able to make a complete application, and you can hope and pray and wait for a successful acceptance into the scholarship. As I speak, Chukwemeka has been trying to get back into the live stream, but he has some challenges. If there are further questions you want us to take, I can see that there are questions in the chat, and I have some questions here. And somebody is asking, thank you very much, Engineer Promise, chatting from Enugu. We appreciate your presence here. And there's a question, what do you have to say about schools that ask for proposal as one of their requirements? How far can one go in writing proposals? Yes, I will quickly give an answer to this. And yes, you are the researcher and you are the person who wants to do a research. For most PhD programs, most, not all, because some funded PhD positions have a research already designed, and they're looking for young researchers who are willing to align their dreams, align their goals, and align their research aims to that pre-designed research, and then follow through with it and get a PhD. But if you are going for Chukwemeka, we see your struggles, and I hope that you are able to get stable in the next few minutes while we are trying to attempt this question about research proposals. And I'm saying that research proposal becomes necessary because the PhD level of education is designated as a research program. The PhD is not like a program where you go and just take courses and get a degree. No, PhD is for research, advanced research, and you're going to prove your ability to conduct research independently, to create, to initiate, to implement, evaluate, all the research processes to demonstrate your ability to innovate, in that process. And so schools asking for proposals, most schools will do that. And what do? You should have one major proposal, which you continually adapt, modify, adjust, and tilt in line with every advertisement that you see, or in line with the major experts you have identified in your field that you really want to work with. So you have one major proposal or two major proposals in your area of research interest, and you have identified professors in that area of research interest, and you see that what you're working on is similar to what they're working on. You now have that research proposal to begin to reach out to them and others in such similar research interests, to be able to get their attention, to carry out that research proposal with them. So it's difficult to have 10 research proposals, for example. You don't want to do 10 research, basically. So for PhD, you want to narrow down your expertise on a specific area within your field. So Chukwemeka is a bit stable now. I don't know if you can contribute to this conversation on research proposals before we go back to the other question for you to wrap up. We're really spending a lot of time and we have a lot of questions to take. If we can make it very brief and straight so that we hit more questions. Thank you.
Okay.
The mic is yours.
All right. So in terms of research proposal, it's just like what you've already said. So one needs to identify what do you want to do. Now, the area you need to start adapting your research proposal, especially is if you're looking for a graduate assistantship position. That's where you might have the challenge of, needing to develop multiple research on one particular thing. In Canada, another professor is working on something within your field, but a topic that is relatively different in another country. So you need to make it align with what those people have done. And then, of course, don't forget that research proposals have a structure. You need to a standard structure to do it so that you're able to hit all the points. For the other conversation, I think I was almost done before the network took me off, except someone has a specific question around that. But I think all I said were the things that the major thing needed to be said so that I can move forward, and then if somebody has any questions again, they can take us back to that.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I hope that we'll be able to answer this question sufficiently. There's another interesting question here, and it's saying, are there scholarship programs that do not make journal publications compulsory? Of course, yes. But I hand over to my guest to take on that question.
Actually, a publication is an advantage, but it's not a requirement for many scholarship opportunities. In fact, even like PhD level sometimes. And the other thing we also forget is that writing your bachelor's project or writing your master's thesis or whatever it is, you can actually count on a sign or an evidence of enhanced writing skill. Yeah, so it depends to some extent on how you communicate it. Of course, there are some others that state it clearly that you need a publication. For PTDF, for instance, at a master's level, publications are not very much essential, except sometimes I change it, but for now, they make it a requirement for a PhD. Well, do we even call it a requirement, but there are some points added to it. So it just depends. Now, again, if you don't have a publication has never been a single and only requirement for any scholarship per se. So if you don't have a publication, then strengthen your other areas. So you can, buffer your application with all the other requirements. You can't have everything in life, but make the best of the ones you have. And then if the opportunity presents itself, you can get a paper. Is going to always be an advantage. But paper or no paper, launch out and apply based on the things you already have.
Thank you very much for that.
In fact, the much I know, Chevening, which is a very popular scholarship to the UK, doesn't require any publications. The other scholarship that is funded by the Swedish Institute, one scholarship in Sweden, it doesn't require any publications. Commonwealth doesn't require any publication. I know a number of people who have gotten scholarships to do graduate assistantship without any publications. So don't let it, turn you off applications.
Yeah, there are other ways to even prove that. You can prove that using your completed thesis or a writing sample to show that you can do in-depth research and put together your thoughts in a clear way on any topic at all. So we quickly want to brush on as many questions. Our time is really going down. want to brush on as many questions as possible right here on the conversation. And this question is really straight. The person asked it like how to apply for scholarship abroad with good SOP, but I rephrased the question to read what makes an SOP good. Can you just give us a few
Oh,
points
oh,
that makes
oh,
an
okay. So when I write SOPs, there are a few things that are compulsory in my SOPs. Now, different people have different approaches to this, but I think what I use works for me because it has gotten several responses from universities and all that. So now you need to be able to there needs to be continuity in the flow of your writing, and because you are using SOP to apply for an academic position, I would always recommend that you have a mix of different sentence structures, to make it to prove your level of writing. You have a mix of different sentence structures, different sentence complexities of sentence, simple, compound, complex, try to blend them together. Now, apart from that, the other things that must be communicated in your SOP is one, your strengths. Two, you need to be able to communicate your understanding of either the scholarship goal or the research interest of the supervisor you are intending to work under. Then number three, you need to be able to communicate your strengths, and that's in terms of your skills rather. And as one last thing I always do is to tie these things together and prove that my previous studies, my existing skill sets are, able to align together to achieve and go beyond the expected outcomes of the scholarship. So I give an example. I am an engineer, right? Oil and gas engineer. So if I'm applying for instance, that requires me to study something in maybe the energy transition, for instance. All this renewable energies is not my field, but if I am at any to look for something, how do I tie my oil and gas knowledge to that opportunity? How do I tie my existing skill to convince the person that if he hires me into this thing, he'll be able to do well? Essentially, you need to treat it as though you are looking for a job, right? You need to communicate in your SOP as though applying for a job. You talk about your academics, you talk about your publications if you have any. You talk about some of the key courses you did that are relevant to that particular course. You talk about your skill. You prove that you have an understanding of where the supervisor is going to. And then you make the supervisor see how your skills and your previous knowledge will add up to deliver results on his project. So this is like a broad idea of what I would generally do. But if you work in this direction, introduce yourself in terms of your academic background, talk about your skills, show your understanding of the research or the scholarship goals, and then prove how your existing knowledge and your existing skill sets will add up to deliver results in that particular research area. If you work within this framework, you will hit all the points that any supervisor will be looking for in an SOP. Yeah, you don't necessarily need to go back as your primary school telling stories of how your primary school went. If you are, limitless in terms of what you can touch on, life-changing moments from those experiences. But apart from that, work within this framework, and other approaches exist, but this is generally what I do as a person.
Thank you so much. From part of what you mentioned here that should be included in an SOP, you talked about experience, and somebody was asking, is it possible to get a PhD scholarship without work experience in that field? And what do you say about that?
PhD, there's a way PhD. Research can be academic, research can be industrial, right? So if a particular PhD PhD is advertised and is more like an industrial, it's like, how do I call it? It is an industrial research, right? Some supervisors might give preference to somebody who has relevant experience in that field. But otherwise, work experience is not required for a PhD. Not in Nigeria, not in the UK, not in the US, not anywhere in the world, right? Because the structure of a PhD is different from work. I work, I'm studying, but I know that what I do work is almost different from what I'm doing in a PhD. Of course, sometimes the knowledge of the PhD is relevant to what I do at work, but a greater part of what I'm doing at work is different from the PhD, even though the two are still within oil and gas, but clear difference. So you don't need to bother yourself about your previous experience. There are positions that will require it, but in minority, if I'm saying, they are like in the very small minority of work experience. The work experience that might be very useful is if you work as a lecturer and you are looking for a graduate assistantship position, that can be very, very useful, but it's not a requirement. I would say it's not a requirement. And I'll give
very much.
Time. Let's not go into many examples. Let's just keep moving. Yeah, but that's how it works.
If you have an example to give, I will just chip in another question and then allow you to just
okay.
Tie together. Right. And we appreciate our viewers for staying on and for following through question and answers on scholarship and study abroad opportunities. If you have questions, you can just drop them in the chat and we can take them as time will allow us here. We're still talking about work experience and PhD admission, but also can you touch a bit on is it the possibility of getting fully funded scholarship for a second master's or a second PhD, and also the possibility of having a family traveling with dependents on a scholarship. I can talk about dependents on scholarship. Just tie up your example with winning a second scholarship for masters.
So in terms of personally, I like to move forward, right? I don't like to rigmarole a lot in terms of I have 1 master's, I want 2 masters, I want 3 masters, I want 4 masters, right? There are instances where that might be necessary, but I've not had that kind of case. So there are people who are in that situation where they want a second master's, where they want a 3rd master's. You can always get a scholarship for even masters if you choose to. There are some that if you have done a master's before, you don't need to, you don't qualify. So what you just do is eliminate those ones from your shortlist and then focus on the ones that will accommodate your condition, right? But my thought is always this: if I'm in oil and gas, right, and if I have a master's in oil and gas, why do I want to do 1 master's in oil and gas in another country? So if I've done a master's, if you have done a master's in Nigeria, for instance, and you're coming to UK, why not try a PhD, right? Except, of course, some people don't want to stay 3 years in school. They want to use the master's as an exit pathway out of the country and then get into the workforce as quickly as possible. The truth is, you can always get your funded master's program even outside, even if you've done a master's before. On the issue of work experience, I was going to tell us about a friend who we were together on scholarship in Russia. We finished from Russia, come back to Nigeria. She finished NYSC, got PTBF, went to Germany, and then she finished her master's in Germany. This was without any, if you call it work experience, it was just NYSC. So, but after in Germany, in fact, she didn't even come to Nigeria. She went straight to Canada on another scholarship, which is now a graduate assistantship position. So the academia is different from the workplace. Your work experience is not, in fact, sometimes when you stay too long in the industry, doing a PhD becomes challenging to you because you get accustomed to industry life, which is almost completely different from academic life. Yeah, but that is just it. You can get a third master's, you can get a fourth master's, anything you want. Just look for the scholarship that eliminates, that fits into your condition. PTDF, for instance, will not even ask you if you've 10 master's degree before. That's your business. You can just apply for the PTDF and then launch out into it. Most of the other ones I know are also not going to go to the fact that you've done a master's before. For families, I'll hand over to my colleague because Germany and he moved with his family. Yeah. Emma, can you hear me? Hello? Hello, can you hear me? Oh, yeah. Yeah, okay. So I don't know if we can still hear me. We could drop comments in the chat box. Then maybe I will just continue to answer the question about moving with family. So what happens with most scholarships is they will not fund your move with your family, but they will give you the right documents to be able to apply for your family to move to the country you are staying in. So if, for instance, you are coming to the UK on a PTDF scholarship, PTDF is not going to give you money to cover the cost of keeping your family here. But the UK allows you to bring your family to the UK while you're studying. And then when all of them are here, the good side of it is the person who is not studying gets the right to work full time. So the person should be able to cover, make enough money to cover the cost of his or her staying, the cost of his or her living in the UK while you focus on studies. Yeah, just a broad, A-level answer to it. If there are specific challenges or someone who is looking to apply for a visa for his family, who can take the conversation offline and discuss in greater details. I don't know if our host can still hear me. Am I still there? Okay. All right. So the next question, it seems there is, can anyone type in the chat if you can hear me? Hello? Hello? Oh, okay. So let me just continue with the conversation. Now, if I think the host is having issues with his work, and then I'll just proceed with the conversation from here. If you have identified that you want a second master's degree, for instance, right? Then what it does for you sometimes is it puts you on a position of advantage, right? And you just need to be intelligent about it, or you need to be smart about it, right? If somebody has said that I have a master's degree existing and I'm applying for another master's degree, the question is why? You need to be able to communicate the reason and link it up with what it's more like somebody who is on a journey of career transition. You need to be able to communicate why you are going in the new direction you are choosing to go. And once you're able to prove that, everything works out well. Now, on graduate assistantship, somebody is asking that I throw more light on the graduate assistantship option. So, graduate assistantships abroad is like, for instance, when somebody graduates with a first class in Nigeria, some universities will offer the person a position to work in the school as a graduate assistant, right? Now, abroad, what happens is that every professor gets or most professors get funded projects from either the industry, from government organizations, and all that. So when they have these funded projects, they need students that will work in that on that research, right? So a professor, for instance, has a contract to for let's say Shell or let's say ExxonMobil, and he needs students because he cannot do all that work alone, combine it with his teaching and combine it with every other thing he does. So he's going to have students who are going to be working on that project. And because they are working in support of that project, their fees are going to be paid. And because and sometimes if the project has got enough money, he's going to, they are going to even get to pay that student some stipend. Some other time is like the school, maybe School of Engineering, for instance, can choose that, okay, they've got some money, they want to fund some projects, so they bring in some students with some supervisors to support some professors to reduce their workload. So those graduate assistants are going to be helping sometimes if they are teaching. If they are teaching assistants, they will be helping with demonstrations in classes, like for undergraduate students, for master's degree students, conducting laboratory sessions, all of that, and all of those kind of things. Those are the kind of jobs they do. But for doing that job, you get your fees covered. Then in many cases, you get a stipend paid to you. Then for someone who has got a second class honors apply for G, of course, certainly it's not, these things are not tied to your CGPA that much. Anybody from first class, second class should be able to apply for a graduate assistantship position and get it. In fact, I like to give examples. I have a who was working, got a similar position in one of the schools in Abu Dhabi, of all places, and a very high CGPA, but not the first class certificate. So all these things are dependent on beyond your grade. The other thing is how well do you connect with the supervised research. To what extent can you demonstrate that if this man puts you on this job, because it's a job actually, if he puts you on this job, to what extent can you demonstrate that you're going to deliver high quality, impactful results? Once you're able to deliver that, most persons are going to look your direction. And of course, how many have first class? Like, what's the percentage of students with first class certificates if you want to take like a general look of all the students population? Yeah, so a 2-1 should not, it does not disqualify you. Where it begins to get challenging is a third class, right? It becomes challenging not because, it's not bad if someone has a third class, but for scholarship purposes, it becomes challenging, which is why if anyone here has a younger one or a child who is in school, it's better to pick it up as quickly as possible. Good performances up as quickly as possible. The journey is smoother. So if, for instance, someone has a second class lower, then supervisors might start looking for additional evidence of excellence. For instance, that you've done a presentation somewhere, or you've delivered exceptional results in a particular workplace or on a particular project. But with first class or a 2-1, it becomes a lot easier. For the rest, is also workable, but you need to be more intentional about your applications and about upgrading your academic status. Yeah. You can just keep dropping the questions in the comments so that we talk through it while our host gets back online with the rest of the questions. I can see Chinonso Anyanwu, I can see Oluwadara. Oluwadara. If there are any additional questions, please just keep them coming. I can also see Promise. Yeah, if you now the other thing I want to even tell us is this: a lot of people don't understand that when you look for scholarships, the general statement is find something you are interested in and look for opportunities in that area, right? But what I seem to have realized is that sometimes you let the tide of scholarships control you. So what this means is that I would rather want it becomes a lot easier if I identify the areas that have more scholarship opportunities and go into it, right? Like um, uh, for instance, if you are someone who has any interest in anything like maybe hydrogen storage, hydrogen generation, anything renewable energy, anything in the energy transition space, management of energy transition, energy management, any of those kind of things, you stand a very big chance of winning a scholarship in the current world, or an interest in deep learning, machine learning, artificial intelligence, and all that, you stand a very big chance of winning a scholarship. Now, the reason is that there are lots of companies that are struggling to win a space in that sphere. There are lots of professors who are trying to establish themselves as tops in these areas. And because there is this struggle, there are, like there is a sea of opportunities flooding all over the whole place. And I also tell people this: you don't need to be stuck on in one particular direction, or this is my course and then this is where I must be. And when I say these things, I like to use the examples of things like material science, because when you do material science, for instance, a lot of people think, okay, I should stay in material science, but material science is applied to almost every aspect of life, from medical to all other aspects of engineering to anything. So if, for instance, you are looking at material for a scholarship, instead of staying and battling around topics, the conventional topics in material science, why not think out of the box and look at things like the impact of hydrogen on materials? Because people are talking about generating hydrogen. Once they generate it, they are going to store it, they are going to transport it. So if you look at the impact of hydrogen on materials, you will almost win a scholarship within the next 6 months, because the opportunities, I can say this because I see tons of opportunities in that area. And these are things that, these are just an approach the scholarship search, and it makes it a little bit easier for you. So let's try to chase, don't stay stuck on what you call your interest. Try to also be a little bit flexible on that interest. Look at where do the opportunities lie. Back in the days, it used to be like that most graduate assistantship opportunities were in Canada, were in the US and Australia. So that game is changing. While those opportunities remain in the US, in Canada, in Australia, there are also several graduate assistantship opportunities in the UK. In fact, I didn't even know that there were as many in the UK until the UK. Before now, it was US, it was Canada, it was Australia. So these are the things that you need to actually, these are the things you actually need to, adopt or integrate into your search for scholarship. So our host is back, and then I will let him have the mic and drive us in the direction we are going.
I'm really sorry. When you logged off one time, I told them that there is no perfect system.
Yeah.
I didn't think the network challenge would stop by my bus stop, and I had very challenging issues. I don't know whether it was with my Wi-Fi connection at home or something, because I'm working. I'm at home this evening. Thank you for driving the conversation so far, and making a lot of progress. I do not know how much more we can take, but I want to see a very striking question that I can bring in here. We've already talked a lot about how to get funding opportunities. We have talked about the things to do before, during, and after. The important thing to do afterwards, especially, is to wait, develop yourself, and prepare for winning the scholarship. Because winning the scholarship is a whole lot of additional responsibility on you. So while waiting, keep working. And we have dealt on the issue of SOP. So question related to this may not. I don't have to repeat it anymore. But I want to bring one very very important question because our time is really going down, down, down. Probably we should add 10 more minutes. We have spent 1 hour 10 minutes already. Please let's spend another 10 minutes to just tackle some easy questions. And the first is, how do I deal with rejections?
When I was looking for jobs at some point, we got so many rejections. We called it love letters. We nicknamed it love letters.
Exactly.
Yeah. So these rejections they are a part of life. They are going to keep happening. But one win erases all the rejection I had. Yeah. So I think the video is frozen a little bit, but otherwise it's still coming out, so I'll keep talking. Now, if you've got rejections here, there, left, center, and all that, the only thing you need to do, the only way to handle rejection is to learn from the rejection, ask questions, cultivate the habit or the culture of asking why. So why did I miss out? Why did I get this rejection? In most cases, when you build on the experiences and the answers to all the why you've been asking, you come up with a solution that gives you the opportunity you are looking for. I give an example with myself. When I first applied for PTDF scholarship, I did not get it, right? I got a rejection. I think it was a very close tie, very close competition between myself and one guy who I think was working in UNN at the time. Now, what happened? I went back, asked myself questions, did some, review of my application, and then launched out to reapply. On the second attempt, I got the scholarship, and it's a very highly competitive scholarship in the sense that if you are coming under PTDF to the UK, you just get 2 slots for PhD for the whole of Enugu State. So you can imagine how competitive it will be. But you ask why, you understand what you lacked, and then you improve on those ones. One of the things I needed to improve on then was my registrations with professional bodies, which was like a major something of key to them. And then you just improve on those things and you keep moving. And it's an answer. Yes is an answer. How the 2 is a bad one, even though we all desire a yes.
And sometimes a no is a better answer as well because it helps you become more competitive. It makes you stay on top of your toes to
discover yourself.
Win the next one. Of course, that's right. I also didn't win my DAD scholarship at the first instance. And every time I log into my personal profile on DAAD as a scholar, I see the first application rejected. And then I see the next one, funding. And then I see the next one, first year extension. And so it always reminds me that you may not get it right the first time, but if you sit back, evaluate yourself, improve, and relaunch, you are likely to be selected, especially if you do things right. If you do things right. I'll be taking on this question about married people and scholarship. But Emeka, I want you to be thinking about undergraduates. I've had this question a lot. Personally, I've been disappointing a lot of people because I've not provided maybe adequate answer. Maybe you can think of some undergraduate scholarship opportunities while I attempt to answer the question on married people relocating with family and things like this. Yes,
okay.
To talk about A married person, probably with children, getting a scholarship, you should understand that your marital status as either a single person or a family person has little or no influence on on the selection process for scholarship or study abroad opportunity. If anything, if you're not going on a scholarship, having a family means your willingness to invest a larger amount of money, to be able to take care of, each of the family member that is coming with you on that trip. And yes, some countries are more friendly than others when it comes to relocating with the entire family, but this should not really be your primary concern in applying for a scholarship. So the procedure to getting a scholarship as a married person is the same with getting a scholarship as a single person. In fact, some of the forms you will have no place to indicate your marital status. Some of the forms. Personally, of course, the DAD, there's a place you indicate if you're married and all of that. But my supervisor did not know I was married until I was ready to to travel. And I said, okay, I need an accommodation for a family. And he said, whoa, you're married? I said, yes, I'm married. I have two kids. And yes, you can do that, but putting that forward, putting that in the front burner of the conversation sends a wrong signal, especially if you are sending a cold email or you are still in the introductory phase between yourself and the supervisor. In fact, it may be a blocker. It may be a little bit, it may be a spoiler in your conversation, bringing family into such discussion. So when you are pursuing things like this, your family is at the front burner of your heart, but don't bring it into the conversation. Don't bring it into the interview. Don't bring it into, of course, if you are asked on the form, fill it, but don't put it forward, consciously and deliberately and intentionally, because not everyone would, take that in the way you would expect it to be taken. So it's the same thing, single or married scholarship opportunities, the same criteria for everyone. Uh, there is no separate one for married people. And if you, as the scholar, get the opportunity, you're funded, then it becomes easier to begin to talk about your family. But on no account should you also declare falsely that you're not married when you are married. That will also be a problem. Thank you very much. Can you now go ahead with undergraduate scholarship? We're now trying to, rush up and quickly tie up this session. And
Okay.
yeah, thank you.
So, because I get these questions about undergraduate scholarships a lot as well. Um, the the truth is, let's be factual. There are more opportunities for masters and even more opportunities for PhDs in terms of scholarships. That doesn't mean that there are no there are no bachelor's degree scholarships abroad. Um, just right now, there is an opening by MasterCard for undergraduate students from Africa. I think that application should close here for a month. Now, the thing is, it's not going to bring you to the UK. It's not going to take you to Canada, for instance. The scholarship is going to be funded in one of the schools in Kenya, right? But it's going to be funded by MasterCard. It's going to give you, I think, pay your tuition, pay your living expenses, give you a laptop, maybe fly you to Kenya, all of those things. But the point is, even if you don't get a bachelor's degree scholarship, um, aim to never pay for education anymore. That is, you are paying for your bachelor's. Aim to have such a grade that will make paying for additional degrees unnecessary. So you get a very high quality bachelor's, and then with that, getting a master's scholarship becomes easier. After your master's, getting a PhD scholarship becomes even a lot easier. Then another opportunity that I know for bachelor students is the BEA scholarship, that's bilateral educational agreement scholarships. I mentioned earlier, it's funded by the Federal Scholarship Board for Nigeria. other countries, I really don't know what names are funding their own. But in Nigeria, is the Federal Scholarship Board. So with the BEA, you can go to Russia. Prior to the war in Ukraine, you could go to Ukraine. I'm not sure if they are still sending students to Ukraine with the current situation there. You can go to Hungary. Sometimes there is the option of going to Turkey. Sometimes there is Japan. There used to be China, those many, but I think China is no longer on the list. Those are the ones that are very popular. Now, but if you are an undergraduate and you are in this program, the other thing I want to encourage you to do is to find the schools you want to go to, write emails to their admissions department. Because very often schools will have some form of scholarship, maybe not totally funded, but some form of that some of us might not see, right? We might not see them, but the schools have them. So when you write an email to the school, state that this is that okay, this is your O-level result, you made this kind of grades, this and that, you want to study so and so course, and you are interested in knowing if they have any scholarship offers for people from your own country. Make it clear that you are from so and so country, and if they have scholarships for your country, because sometimes in trying to build diversity or improve diversity in their school, they give some kind of scholarship to encourage people from certain countries to come in. Right, so that is something else you can do. If you are intending to go to the US for your undergraduate studies and you want a scholarship, then you might consider SAT. So your performance in SAT can determine the level of scholarship they offer you. For some people, it could be 40%, some it could be cents and all that. I also know, I remember faintly that I think there is a scholarship in Cambridge, or is it Cambridge or Oxford, something like that, for undergraduate students. But if you can't get an advertised scholarship opportunity for your undergraduate, reach out to the school directly. Sometimes just get that scholarship, get the admission from the school, even if it doesn't come with funding, then you can use that admission letter, email all these bodies that you've identified as funding bodies. Like if I was looking for an undergraduate scholarship, this is what I would do. I would go and get an admission with a school, and I will start bombarding MasterCard Foundation with that thing, telling them the story of how I can't afford that course because I'm from a low-income country and all of that. And somehow they might create a space for you because they already have these programs on. Like I mentioned, if you have not seen it, go and look for it. There is a MasterCard Foundation scholarship program for undergraduate students from Africa. That application should close on the 20th of this month. If you haven't seen it, you can go and look for it. I have it published on Facebook, and I think I have it on Facebook published. You can go and look for it and then check it out. Apply. It's not.
Thank you very much. And there's a part of this question I didn't take, which is, will the married person be able to cope with the studies? Yes, you can. I'm married, and I have two kids.
It's like married people cope with work.
Yes, you can. That should not be your fear. The biggest hurdle is the PhD. Get the PhD. Every other thing will work out well. Yes.
Do you even know that I have a colleague who is studying a PhD, who is doing PhD in my school? He's a man. In fact, his life challenges me. This is somebody that he used to be to my boss when I was working in Lagos. So I think his first child is done with school. I think he's finished a master's. He even has a company that he's running. But his dad is now doing a PhD, and he's coping. He's doing a PhD. He's even working. He has his hands in different companies. He's still working. He's still doing this PhD. My boss in Nigeria was running an oil and gas servicing company as CEO, and he was doing a PhD in Toronto, University of Toronto. So he's married with, I think, 3 children. So married, working, everything. You can combine all of them. Just come. You have the capacity to do it, and you can do it.
Thank you very much. Somebody had a passionate question that he asked. He said, "What are the steps I should take in applying for a scholarship?" Because I don't know if I've been doing it right. I think you need to go back to the drawing board, check your qualifications, check your CV, and check how you have been presenting yourself. Connect with more advanced people who have won scholarships. Let them review your essays. Let them see and tell you what you may have been doing wrongly or what you can improve. It may not really be that something is wrong, but you know you are running up against a lot of competition, and it is something that somebody else will need to check and say, okay, you can do better, you can do this better, you can present this better, you can include this, you can take this away, improve this, add this, talk about this to improve your chances. So we are gradually winding down this conversation. Thank you very much, Mr. Chukwemeka, and I really appreciate your presence here. I'm trying to get the final question. Final question. It's like we have one. Okay, we'll just take two last questions. One from the chat and one from the previous applicant. And this one was not really like a question, but I think the person just typed internship and scholarship summer opportunities. I believe the person is trying to ask about internship opportunities and summer school opportunities. Can you just throw a very quick light on this, and then we take the last question and we sign out for the day?
Okay, well, internship opportunities and summer schools, it will depend on, I think that question the person will need to be a little bit more specific, because the answer is going to depend on where he's intending to go to. So in the US, for instance, there's something called, they used to call, I don't know if the name has changed, but it used to be called work and travel. In fact, recently, one of my friends, a sister to one of my friends, was in the US. She studies in one of the schools in Nigeria, but she went to the US for like a break period, was working and making money. So sometimes your school will be the one arranging it, because if your school is not involved in it, if you come there, you won't go back to your country. So, and for summer schools, I know that a friend from Rwanda was once on a program sponsored by, is it UNESCO? I think UNESCO or the United Nations. I know they have quite a lot of those kind of opportunities. UNESCO, United Nations, even World Bank. They used to have some of those things, maybe send you to Poland, send you to Sweden, send you to Switzerland for a very short course. So the question is not very clear, but I hope this helped the person somehow, some way.
Yeah. Getting information on internship and summer school opportunities, they don't really circulate so widely because it does so in a closed group. That is why you need to connect to experts in your field. So if you want to be a global scholar, you are not only following your lecturers on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn, you're following international scholars in your field, those whom you're citing their literature, those who you have read their books, and just random professionals, professors, assistant professors, even PhD students. Personally, I'm a PhD student, but I post a lot of opportunities, especially related to geography, related to crop modeling, related to climate modeling, because I have had costs to subscribe to some portals, to be a member of some organizations where people say, dear members, we have this position, and I post it. Dear members, can you circulate this? And I post it. So if you are not connected to strategic scholars in your field, you are likely to miss out on such opportunities like internship and summer school. And sometimes some of the information is being hoarded because some people feel, oh, well, I think I should keep this one and apply for myself and things like that. But there are people who will definitely share these. As you connect to them, you will definitely find such input or such opportunities when they come out. Finally, we will just take this last question because I think it's very relevant. For someone navigating into a new field, how can the person present a strong application without prior experience? I think you touched this a little bit when you talked about PhD not requiring a work experience. But for example, if somebody is going from course A to course B, I went from geography education to climate science. Now, how do I present a strong application without adequate experience in that field. Can you just wrap up with this? And um,
Okay, so I'll give us an example with my friend, because sometimes if we just talk through these things, it looks like they don't really happen. I was working in Lagos in one company in Lekki Phase One. We were doing oil and gas projects and all that kind of thing, upstream maybe. So one of my colleagues got PTDL scholarship alongside myself, but she's in the UK and she's not doing oil and gas. Her background was petroleum engineering. Here in the UK, she's doing data science, right? How do you present a strong application? Like I mentioned, when you are writing an SOP, what you need to do is you talk about what you have, you talk about your understanding of what the person you are talking to is doing, and you connect how what you have is going to be relevant and help the progress of what that person is doing. So, for instance, if the person who was moving from oil and gas engineering to data science, how do you connect the two? Data science is going to involve a lot of abstract thinking. So I can come in with the leg of, during my engineering school, we've been trained, gone through rigorous trainings that have developed my ability to think abstractly or in dimensions, and then the session starts flowing from there. So after this period, I've taken courses in this to develop an existing body of skills in which are relevant to the course that you're about to do, right? And you just link up those things. That gives you a solid application, in any place. Now, the other with academics is that PhD, for instance, is not even sometimes about how intelligent you are. It's sometimes about your resilience and your tenacity. So, and once people are able to, in fact, a professor in our school was telling us about how he got into a man is from Palestine, and he told when they were interviewing him, he told them that he's been like, of course, about the situation in that part of the wars and all that. So he told them that he has been developed into a tough person. Like all his life, he has been a tough. So that was probably what he had over all the other people who are applied, right? So if you are moving from one place to the other, you don't necessarily, what you just need to, this is what I have. This is how these things connect to this thing you are doing. And this is how they are going to help make progress in that. Nobody says you must be an engineer forever. In fact, I must not even remain in petroleum engineering. I can wake up tomorrow and choose to go to any other place. What is important is how do these things connect to what I am going to do next. There's always a new phase, and there's always a new beginning. And what you've done, how does it connect? And prove that you understand what you are talking about. Don't send a supervisor email saying, please explain to me what you mean by machine learning in the advertisement you put up. If I'm the supervisor, in fairness, I'm not going to respond. And that will be your elimination from that application, because you are supposed to be able to understand the written English. And what you don't understand, you should even show that you've made efforts to understand what it is, than throwing back that question to the person. Yeah. That is just what I would say because of time, but we can continue the conversation offline if need be.
of course, you can reach Chukwemeka via he's active on LinkedIn, he's active on Facebook. I think he has a Facebook group. Tell me the name of your Facebook group again so that our viewers can hear.
So I have a Facebook page. It's actually called Academy of Scholarships and Transitions. So essentially what I do there is I talk about scholarships, and the transition part of it is, breaking people from where they are or pushing people out of their comfort zones to the new levels they ought to be in. And of course, managing, providing guidance on moving from one location to the other location, but ultimately to share scholarship opportunities, change the minds of people, motivate motivate them, push them out of their comfort zone until they're able to get those scholarships and until they make the necessary career progress that they deserve. Because as scholarships come the career, I need to be able to relate to a career person after school. There's a way around it, what I do there.
That's right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your time, Mr. Chukwemeka. You have really helped us today, and I'm sure that um, our viewers are happy with what we have been able to present so far, despite the challenges and the difficulties we had in the network reception. And as we part, do you have any parting words for our viewers and for our listeners? What do you say? Just as a
Okay,
closing
general,
remark.
there is there's something I love to say, and I'm a Christian, and I love to draw some inspirations from scriptures. So, two things from the scripture I want to tell us about. Number one is you need to seek, and when you seek, you get direction to a location. That is, you find. When you find, the door might be closed, but then you knock. So when you knock and the door gets open, then ask for something specific. Don't roam around. So in looking for scholarship, you are going to look. Eventually, God is going to direct you to where the scholarship is. When you get there, knock. When the door opens, ask for a scholarship. Don't get there and be confused. You are and start asking about job or start asking about monetary help. Just ask for that scholarship that you're looking for, and somehow, when you ask, the Bible says you receive. Second thing is, it's not for the swift, battle is not for the mighty. You can things we have said. And if God no put hand inside, like we say in Nigeria, you might be running a race that is not, going to be fruitful. So in all that you do, try to commit your ways in prayers. So these are just my closing remarks. Seek for it. The opportunities are so many. In fact, scholarship opportunities are so many. If I choose to post scholarships every day, I said there is no day I can't remember any day this February that I will look for a scholarship opportunity and not see one. Like if I say I want to find a scholarship that is open right now, I will find one. So there are so many of them. Seek for it, find it, knock on the door opens, ask specifically for what you want, and just wish you the best in your scholarship applications. We've all been there before, and the benefit enormous. You have peace of mind to study, you have some money in your pocket, and you still get some hours to work extra in some countries. So go for it. And thank you, Emmanuel, for having me on your program.
Thank you very much, Mr. Okechukwu. We really enjoyed your time here, and we appreciate your sacrifice. And to you, viewers and listeners, I think I'm drawing the curtains because it's getting really long on this conversation. But I hope that those who would watch the review, the replay, would find some information useful. And to you, our viewers too, you can reach us. You can ask questions, through our social media channels. I'm on Twitter. I have my YouTube channel, Scholarship Gen, and then my Facebook profile is my name, Emmanuel Eze. My LinkedIn is the same. And I hope we can catch up to continue this conversation and clarify gray areas, if there are, to make you a winner of um, a scholarship in the coming months. And till we celebrate you, myself and I'll call it Dr. Okechukwu will say bye for now and stay well. Keep looking on God because from the Bible as a Christian, something is striking. Say, by strength shall no man prevail. It's not by intelligence. It's not by who know book. It is by who God blesses their effort and their labor. So as you put the labor, as you make the effort, you also look to the skies. Look above where the one who will bless it is. And I hope that one of these days we will celebrate, will rejoice, and will share in your joy. And from here, we'll say bye for now and see you next time. And see you offline and online um, in other channels. Bye.
All right. Bye.